Episode 2.
Who let the slurs out? Who?
Man, I love the music tonight.
Let's do it. Let's all sing "Who Let the Slurs Out."
It's my favorite song.
Who let the Jews out of Auschwitz? Who let the Jews
Oh, I thought you were gonna go with of in.
out? All right, I like it. Okay, but seriously, this is okay. This is the shit that has been bothering me now for the past 3 days. I started watching. I'm gonna have to give him a shout out for another. I'm gonna have to do the thing. This is how bad this is. There's a podcast called Rotten Mango, right?
Mhm.
Rotten Mango?
Rotten Mango. It's all about
That's.
crimes in Korea.
Are we fans of these people?
Oh,
I
I think I know where you're
Because
going.
whether or
God
not
damn
I
it.
think that name is good is going to be dependent on whether or not we are fans of these people.
okay, in the loosest sense possible, we're fans because I don't hate that woman for what she's doing. It is a true crime podcast. I will say that. So take me with a grain of salt.
I've taken you with more than a grain of salt, baby.
Okay. What? Ah,
Oh, I'll
aha.
take you.
Oh. All right. Listen, everybody. The past few weeks have been contentious, and I'm trying to just bring down the mood. Let's all
Okay.
let's all definitely keep
Bum,
horny
bum, bum,
posting.
bum. Wow.
We definitely need more horny posting to fix that. So, just excellent work, the two of you. We're doing good.
Mhm,
I want to
mhm,
point out those other two bitches never show up for work, so you two are the
mhm,
troopers, and I'm proud of you. A quick aside before we go into the Rotten Mango content I've been consuming and now dying inside over. Guess who I talked to last night?
Ooh,
Former son of Trier himself, John Sinclair.
really?
Yeah, I talked to him for like a good 2 hours.
And how is the Sinclairian?
Well, he's good. He's still gay for me, and you know.
Which he can't actually like decline or argue against because he's not listening.
Yeah, he can't defend himself against these accusations.
Being
I'm
Which is a
incredibly gay for Dan.
I'm super interested in what you're gonna say next
yeah.
because
Well,
I have no familiarity with this being. Like I've heard him referenced very occasionally. But I had not yet been enlightened when he was a member of the crew. Like I was not privy to those episodes. So
depending on who you ask. Okay, so for spoiler alert, we used to call this the two Jews in a pod, right? That's what we used to nickname this because the predominant ethnic minority on this would be white-skinned Jews. Okay, and it was me and John were the predominant ethnic minority. Gender imbalance. The gender balance is out of sight, baby. Like it's just bad.
Ain't no one that
I
balanced.
know I'm a token. It's fine.
Well, I mean, all right. I don't want to say it, but yeah, we kind of needed at least one fucking female.
I'm the one that gives you plausible legitimacy.
That's true. Later, when we get into the real hardcore sexism, you'll be the one who at first is like, "No, they're not," and then you're like, "Well, they could have said
They
this
could do
better."
better.
Right.
And then finally, it is with a heavy heart I must agree with the masses. Check out my new podcast, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, but it's
We
just
want you to know we don't blame you
No, why would we blame you for the only
for
correct
being
thing?
right.
Yeah. Notably, this podcast is the one that doesn't get on your shit for being correct, like every other podcast on the planet. Sons of Trier, the only podcast that won't cause you to be raped and murdered in a Korean sex scandal.
Whoa. I
I
can't
know.
believe you'd say something so
Are you sure?
controversial.
Are
Yet
you
so
sure? Because
true.
Yes.
because if that's not an option, I might have to rethink things.
Damn. All right. I wasn't expecting that to be the deal breaker. and yet here we are. Here we are in life. Okay. All right. The things you
Okay,
learn about people.
so you had a nice chat.
So I had a nice chat with Johnny. Yeah, we had a nice chat with Johnny, and it was nice to talk to him after like listening to. I've listened to now like 4 hours of the Nth Room case, which is what I was referencing the other day when I was like, "Have you people heard about this shit?" And like only one of them was like, like, "Yeah, I heard about it." Like, okay. So apparently, like, do you remember a while back when I was like, Korea's in an all-out gender war all of the time?
Purdue.
Okay. Well, let's just say that the fact that I said that doesn't necessarily mean I knew why. Like, you know how you can know something's true without knowing the exact as why something's true?
For sure, for sure.
Okay, well, good old Danny. Danny has this thing where he that happens to be his normal mode. Okay, so now I know why they're always in a gender war. So
Why are they always in a gender war?
back in 2018, there was a Korean dude who was running a dark website, and the the content on that website is what you can expect from, how do we say it,
A dark
libertarian,
web website.
yeah, libertarian
God,
minded
God.
individuals, right? and
Hmm.
and notably, like, for most of these places, it's like, apparently, like, I don't know anything. Oh my god, even talking about this stuff is starting to make me uncomfortable, because now, like, we're not just accusing Republicans of being pedophiles writ large and walking away from it. Like, I'm actually talking about, like, confirmed mostly right-wing pedophiles. Like, we're talking about the big leagues here. We're talking about the actual perps, right? So it's
Yeah,
starting to get a
people
little
that are
uncomfortable.
actually terrible.
Yeah, like, yeah. Well, like, okay, so this dude this dude was running this website, and he had amassed, fuck, how much was it? It was something like over 1 million videos, and over half of them were like new, meaning he wasn't just an amalgamator. He was actively like acquiring new content, and the one of the ways he would do that is just like, okay, here's the deal, pal. You can get in, you can get this whole fucking library, but you got to contribute to the library. A la, it was YouTube for it, functionally. So
Ugh.
people were yeah, and like people would actively, to get, like, get permissions on the site or whatever, they would actively record them doing these things to people they were physically near, right? So these are like
To be
bad.
fair, that's a brilliant like business model. Like
Unfortunately, that is.
I'm yeah, like I'm a quote unquote content creator,
Uh-huh.
like influencer. I'm a Telegram influencer,
I
but the
see.
way that I'm going to do that is to get people who subscribe to me to give me free content.
Okay, so you do know a little bit about this case, or
Oh, I
related
looked it
to
up
it.
because it came up. It came up in chat the other day, and I actually looked it up a couple hours ago.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I'm still processing.
Yeah.
I didn't do a deep dive. I read enough to like understand the reference, and I'm like, oh
Nope.
god, and I noped out.
Yeah, fair. All right. So, like, you're not totally going to be like blindsided by this. That's probably best. In engaging with this stuff in a very limited way first is probably the way to do it. And I went whole fucking hog with like victim statements and shit. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm in a bad place. Not a worse place, mind you, not a worse place than the myriad, like the thousands upon thousands. I'm gonna estimate at about 100,000 victims of this stuff, right? I'm clearly in a better place than them, and I'm not even gonna pretend. But just like hearing
Daniel,
about it
thank
to
you
the
for
point about
taking the
Danny,
psychic hit for the team.
yeah, I'm gonna take the psychic hit for you guys so I can gently make it aware, right? So anyway, oh, wow, this stuff is gruesome. So yeah, so there's this guy right now. Korea's a funny place, and by funny I mean horrifying, because like they don't have laws to deal with that. They're not really built to handle a situation like this. So when this happens, right, they're like, what do we do with the guy? We don't have any laws to actually shut this down, even though we know, like, we as a society have to say no to this. So they were like, well, he's a young kid. This guy's like 20 to 20. He's under 22, right? He's in his 20s but under 22. I don't know if he's 21 or 20. Like, that's how like niche this is. Like, how narrow a band we're actually at with this human being. But they're like, well, this guy's young. We don't want to ruin his entire life just because he, aided and abetted the abuse of like 10,000 people. And
And it was a there's no rule that says that dogs can't play basketball kind of thing.
kinda, yeah. So like the crime they got, like, they were like, we can't get him on producing because he's not producing any of the own content, right? All he does is amalgamate it and encourage others to produce it. So he's like, technically the perps are all the people who are showing up and giving him money to participate in it, which is like,
So he's Kaya Rychik.
yeah, he's kind of like Kaya Rychik, actually. So they're like, well, we don't know what to do with that information, so like, let's give him like 3 months in jail. and we'll send him on his merry way, right? We'll just send him out there, and then if we catch the other guys, or if he IDs the other guy, we'll like even give him time for good behavior, which of course he doesn't because he's a fucking pedophile. And when they asked him why he did it, he's like, well, I like it. And they were like, yeah, sure, okay, that's a reasonable thing to say. For some reason, like in North Korea, like in South Korea, that's like a reasonable thing you could say. So like people are like already
Why'd
pissed
you
off
do
about
it?
shit.
I wanted to.
Yeah, well, I only did it because I wanted to do that. And they're like, oh yeah, that's reasonable. That's why everybody's like, I go to work. I want to be at work. Like, so sure, right? So that's what they do to the guy, and now like that's like 2019 because then when COVID hits, like they're like, okay, how do we top this guy? Ho ho ho! And the Koreans have an answer. That's when they enter a guy whose name is God God. At least his online handle on Telegram is God God. Because he's the god of pedophiles, and he's the highest god of pedophiles. Because like apparently like that Telegram app that right wingers use, right? Like we were like, oh, clearly they're using it for encrypted conversations, and at some point it's relatively obvious that they have traded like child pornography. Like definitely Matt
Right.
Gates has. Like probably Matt Gates has. Or at least you've had to like, and we know Matt Gates sex traffics a child through Telegram. So like,
Right. Well,
Right, right, right.
to be fair, I'm going to point out that some users of Telegram may just be Nazis. They may not be pedophiles. Like, there's a possibility.
Sure. I assume at some point the Venn diagram isn't a perfect circle.
Right.
I don't know where that's at.
It's
I just wanted
it's
to.
way less of a sliver than you'd want it to be, but you're probably right.
That's what I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
In
Fair.
fairness.
All right. We're going to be hyper fair to the Nazis, famously put upon people. Famously.
That's
We would.
famously my position, being
Yeah.
fair to Nazis.
Being fair to them. That is your MO. You're like, guys, hold on. I gotta check the fairness meter here. Beep boop boop. It says we're not being fair enough to the Nazis, guys. We gotta.
I mean, you
Better
do
start
not,
punching
in
some
fact, have to
faces.
hand it to them.
Yeah.
But
Oh no, I hand it to them. They can get both of these hands.
They get both of the hands. Yeah.
They are rated E for everyone, baby.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's good. Nice
Fully-
gaming reference.
Fully equipped.
Fully equipped to handle a Nazi by kicking his ass. Sea bass. So yeah, anyway, so God pops up. Now God's in this world for its sheer love of the game. He's like, my favorite thing to do is to sadistically torture children and find as many people who are like me to participate in the torture.
As possible.
Yeah, these are the end rooms, because there's another guy who comes up out of this world who's like been an end room user, and he's like, you know what the problem with this guy is? He's not
He's not extreme enough.
He's not.
I knew it.
Enough.
Somehow that
Yeah.
was gonna be the problem.
This guy's not making any money off of it, and like to not to God's credit at all. God made exactly about like I think it was 672 US, meaning he really
That
was.
is almost nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, he really was in it for sheer love of the game, which is even more horrifying because this is not like a
Yeah.
thing.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
It's
Is it worse that he did it purely for the
Yeah.
sake of doing it?
Yeah, it's way
I
worse.
kind of
probably
think
worse.
so. I
Yeah.
kind of think so.
Like out of the two, neither of them like it. We're now ranked. We are literally like how, like we like to joke we're ranking Hitlers.
Right.
We actually are though. Is what we're now
Okay.
engaged in. We're actually,
Fair enough.
Yeah, we're like, and I am with Juniper on this. Like, if you were doing this because you simply like the only reason you're doing it is like your sheer love. Because the thing is, it's not like the doctor is like, oh, I loathe the fact that you've done
Volunteering
this,
at a CIA Black Ops site.
Yeah.
I don't get paid. I just love to torture.
I love the torture, man. It's fun. Good time. Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like,
At some point.
when you hear it out loud, you're like, oh, that's definitely worse.
Yeah.
But to the doctor's credit, right? To the doctor's not credit. How do you say this? To credit his actions to himself. Let me do it like that. That's probably the way to articulate that phrase, right? Because I'm not saying that he deserves some kind of like fucking reward for this attitude. But the doctor's love of the game, if you will, is far outweighed by the fact that he is like this, like an insecure, like incelish dude, and he's like,
Of
oh,
course he is.
of course, oh yeah,
No, that's.
oh yeah, oh
I
yeah, like
can't believe I knew it without even knowing it.
it's
Before
weird.
I knew it, I knew it.
Yeah, yeah, my man is an incel. My man out there abusing little kids and middle schoolers and shit because he's an incel, you know. And like, I'm not gonna get into all the fetishes, but like, if you can like in your head right now, pick like the worst thing you can think of. Like, they did 10 times worse than that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they took it to another level. Got it.
They were taking it to another level because that's how the doctor made his money. Like, he's like, okay, all right, these people are like hungry for new content because they're shunned by society unfairly, right? I want to make sure to be very clear that he's like, this is bullshit that they're treated like this. This should be like a perfectly normal thing. Like, I'm going down to the Sunday torture porn session for little kids, you know.
People who love niche content shouldn't be marginalized.
That's kind of their argument though. Right? That's kind of these people's fucking freakish argument is like, look, they just have a passion and like we need to respect
That passion is crime.
that passion is a horrific crime that in a civilized country would just engender the death penalty without like batting an eye because you can
My passion is graphic design and human rights violations.
yeah. I'm really passionate about graphic design and like watching the torture and wholesale slaughter of the family unit through vicious torture sex acts. Is that a crime? We'll let the
Well,
court.
Yes, I think
yes.
it might be.
We'll let the
But
court
like, is it a
decide.
moral crime? I mean, not a moral crime, but like.
Is it really immoral what I'm doing?
If
Yeah,
Well, it's a victimless crime. Well, not actually, but
yeah.
you disregard the victims, it is technically a victimless crime.
Well, you know,
right, you know.
if you would just ignore the fact that there were victims, it would be a victimless crime. So I don't know why you're upset.
Well, the quote unquote victims are not people that we should really consider people.
Yeah.
So
Are we supposed to be considering women and children humans these days? Is that the kind of standard we want to set in our society?
I think not.
I think
To start with,
I
I
hardly
hate that we live in a society.
yeah. I hate that we live in this society, right? So these guys are drumming up. These guys have a system, right? They have a system. The doctor and his rival, or his rival, God, and the doctor have a simple system, right? And basically, what it boils down to is we can get what we want out of these people in a relativistically easy way if we follow some simple heuristics. We make people engage with us directly. We make them notify us of who they are as human beings. That way they cannot run from us. And we make them join in and we encourage them to join in by presenting it as a fun thing to do, right? If you do this fun thing, now that we're all in this one together, because I know who you are and you know who everybody else, and I know who everybody else is, you're perfectly safe. You're operating without any anonymity, any threat of anonymity being violated unless you cross us, but you're not going to cross us because you're on the team, right? This is a critical feature of it all. Um, if you join in what they call the fun, then you're going to be good to go ahead and just enjoy your fucking your filth. Your pure fucking filth. Your pure just hideous, insane filth, and you'll be good to go, right? But one of the key caveats that you have to participate in is you have to help us produce new content. You have to actively make sure that you're contributing. You have to be a team player. So just like
Yeah,
in the
otherwise you're
old
not
days,
on the team. Ugh.
otherwise it's very likely that you're a cop. So like, because it's not like the cops are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So what the cops are forced to do is then dig in the archives, right? If they want to get into these rooms, they have to dig into the old archives and present these guys with something new to tickle their fancy. So even to get in, they
It,
have to violate someone, right?
it,
It's
it
a pattern
reminds me a
problem.
little bit. It reminds me a little bit of like the early days of internet piracy, where
Yeah,
like to get on a server, you would have to like contribute like I don't know, like a cracked version of Photoshop or whatever.
sure, you have to make it available.
Right. You have to contribute, and then you can get in and get other people's uploads.
Yeah, sample the ware. You got to contribute to the wares
The sample them.
to sample the other wares. Which, like, if we were talking about like The Sims 3
Or pirating a video game.
or if we're talking about like pirating a video game or a movie, like you can
A
have whatever.
4K version of Room with a View.
Yeah, okay, right. Let's say for the sake of argument, the anti-piracy people are right and it's actually a crime. Let's say they're right. Is it the same? Is it actually the same? It's a little bit different.
Well, are we asking the anti-piracy people?
Well, to be fair,
I
we
mean,
asked
it's
them. Yeah, all right.
Because they probably
it's
say
still
yes.
it's still movies.
It is
Well,
still movies.
fascinating. That's a statement you made. Fascinating. So anyway, right? These guys are doing this for about a year, and they're escalating behavior. They're racking up women, and now they start escalating to where they're doxing the women and being like, "Yeah, whatever, do what the fuck you want. They're just property anyway. Who gives a shit?" Because when the doctors start and gods start getting bored with them, it moves from sexual humiliation into torture, into um, just being like, yeah, like if you're a good enough boy, right, you can win a rape. You can win your own custom content, or you get to star in the content, right? So they escalate to raping people, causing people to commit suicide, and so on. And these women and these kids are just being fucking replete victimized in like the most disgusting fucking ways imaginable. And of course, like they're all these fucking fiends who are watching this shit are commenting because one of the big drivers is like some of the content is like YouTube where it's like previously made content, and some of it is live stream, so it ends up being a lot like a Twitch chat, right? Which is something these guys are probably doing and enjoying when they're not in the middle of a pedophilic rampage, right? Which again, the more you talk about it, like it sounds like it's like it can sound very funny, but you're like, oh, this is like actually the most disgusting shit possible. And it's like, yeah, it is. Like there's no getting around it. Like it just gets disgusting. The types of torture they were engaged in, you know, um, intentional body mutilation, that kind of shit, right? Piss and shit drinking and eating,
Ugh.
gruesome stuff. Yeah, just like gruesome stuff. And like they're doing this to these people for years. Now, finally, a journalist was like, he catches wind of something, a separate website, a wholly different pedophile website, and like, he starts reporting on that. Well, as he's doing that, somebody catches his reporting and is like, you need to check out the rooms. And he's like, the fuck are the rooms? And then when he gets in there, he starts reporting on that shit, to which, when his report goes live, the only people who are paying attention to it, they've been scanning for talk of the rooms to try to get, to make sure their anonymity is maintained the way they want it to be maintained. And when they become actual internet famous because somebody's been tattling on them, they get pissed and start retaliating. And when they start retaliating, they start escalating the type of violence and the violence they're going to do. They're like, well, now we're going to murder these girls. We're going to have them murder themselves, and they start trying to they start trying to raise defenses like, we were just watching it. These are the women who are producing child porn. These women need to go to jail. They need to be punished for their actions, right? They're escalating in those kind of ways, the type of violence, until finally they crack the code and they figure out who the fuck this guy, this the doctor guy is. And lo and behold, it's this fucking loser, this absolute fucking loser who's like a legend to these people. And his alternative counterpart, God gets caught not long after, because of course, like when these guys start falling, right, their identities start being known. It becomes easier to track down the next one. So all you have to do is take out one, you can take them all out. And that's eventually what happens in the long run. But in the short run, of course, like they start playing cat and mouse games with the cops. They start, making sure to like accelerate the behavior to torment the cops and try to essentially get them to be like, you know what, you're going to give up. You may as well give up the chase for us. Not only are you not going to get us, but by chasing us, we're just going to escalate our behavior and make it worse for all those people. So now you're the cause of the harm, not us. Like normal serial killer type shit. You know what I mean? Genuine sexual sadist behavior. Where it's like, if I can offload this torment onto somebody else who doesn't enjoy it, I get to victimize them as well. So I get to reoffend.
Putting the guilt on somebody else. You made me do it.
You made me do it. Yeah, that's exactly the terminology they use too, repeatedly. They're like, you made us do this. We were just content with torturing these girls, which is not true, right? If they were just content with torturing these women, uh, that already would have been disgusting enough, right? But they wouldn't have escalated to the acts they were making them do if the torture was enough by itself. They wouldn't have had to continue the escalation pattern because they wouldn't have, essentially it's for them, it's like, and the actual watchers make it very clear that for them this is entertainment. They don't see this as anything to be like written. I don't need to write home about this shit. This is just a fun old time with the boys hanging out. Why are you mad? Which is also a disturbing attitude to have, to what you're doing. But that triggers a rash of male suicides, random dudes just killing themselves, and those random dudes are actually watchers in the rooms. So then they end up in this situation where they have people who are like, the netizens of Korea are freaking the fuck out. They're like, what in the fuck is happening in our country? Because the sheer numbers of unique users they have found is about 260,000, which about 130,000 of those came from Korea, right? So the other 130,000 are worldwide. I know a guy who knows a guy in these circles, and he let me in on this cool thing. But, a lot of them are homegrown. They're having daily attacks. Like I said, they're able to conduct live rapes in Korea because these women are all Korean and these children are all Korean children. So they're able to do this at home, meaning they're able to organize this shit within their own borders.
And I'm curious, because I don't have a good head for like size and proportion. 130,000 nationwide population is probably not a huge percentage, but like, what would that be?
There's still 130,000 people. That's a lot.
137 aggressive, violent, rich sex offenders.
No. I'm literally asking like I'll go look it up.
What is Google? What is the population of Korea?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm going to go figure it out.
50-ish million. So you're talking like 1 in 200, 1 in 300.
Sure.
That means like in a town the size of where
Jesus
I grew
Christ. Because I'm thinking of it in proportion to like, quote unquote rare diseases.
Yeah.
And something. What did you say? Like 1 in 20, 1 in 200?
It ends up being like 1 in 200 to 1 in 300, depending on how many were actively Korean.
Astonishingly huge.
Yeah. Oh, it's massive.
That's not rare.
And the other thing
by
we notice
by
is
that
like,
kind of metric, that's not rare. That is, if it I'm just saying, like, if it were a fucking disease, it would rank. And it is a disease, but like not a well.
To put it in perspective,
I'm gonna shut up.
To put it in perspective, in our lovely home state, there were more pedophiles active in Korea, rich pedophiles. Mind you, like, these are expensive endeavors. You have to pay for all this shit, right? You're not just getting this. This isn't all going. There is a freemium version where you get some of the content, but by and large, you're paying upwards of like the lower end threshold is like $700 to get your foot in the door and enjoy the free stuff per month. After an active contribution
per month,
$700, and like your high end is like 1,500.
So someone's making a rent payment.
Oh yeah, well somebody had to actively pay for his leg enhancement surgery, his height enhancement surgery. My man didn't like that he was short, so like any good incel.
Hey, I know somebody that was going to get that shit for like. Oh, well, I mean, it was opposite, but they were going to go get their legs shortened in Turkey, and the surgery and the recovery was only going to cost $25,000.
Oh, only $25,000. Yeah, well, to get bigger because of the intensive care it requires, it's $100,000 operation in Korea, Which the
Oh,
doctors will
geez.
happily do. Yeah, they'll happily do it. They're like, oh fuck yeah, dude, party time. Let's go. Let's get them legs
And
big.
see what this is not a funny. This is Jesus Christ, how dark is our world funny.
Yeah,
But I'm thinking, so would you say like that leg lengthening thing, like 150 base?
it's
And
100K.
then, and right. And of course your living expenses and
Yeah,
whatever. Because I mean, you're not going to an office with your briefcase when you're having this shit done. Like
that's true.
you've got external fixation. You're not, yeah. Anyway,
You're not in the right
um,
space maybe to work in those areas. Sure.
well, you're gonna be doped up. Shit's incredibly painful. Like,
Yeah.
and then like people have to come in and like clean your pins and anyway,
And and
um,
and they have to re-break your legs every day.
right, right.
They got to
And
keep
it's
going.
like, okay, so if someone just broke both of your legs, do you think that you're gonna walk into the bathroom to take a shit?
No, oh no, you're not. Yeah, you're right. You got to pay. So we're like talking like just the surgery. Oh, I don't know if but I don't know if it includes the
No,
case.
no, but like, yeah. So I mean, but like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
But
that's even out of the that cost is out of the picture. Like, I mean, but those are the realities that people that are doing this have to deal with, and you got to have the resources to do it. The
yeah.
the point the point I was making is when you say 150,000 for something like that
Yeah.
takes weeks, and then you're gonna like, what's the true recovery time? Like, I mean, we might be talking like a year for real.
It they
But when
say
I think of $150,000 surgery in the United States of America,
it's like dental work. Yeah.
right?
It's like routine
And
dental
that's
work.
that's the part I'm glad I made you laugh, because that's the part that has like the internal dark, everything fucking sucks and here's proof
Yeah.
voice. That's totally one. Like, oh, only 150,000 for that shit.
Yeah. But like, keep in mind too, like this guy has again, there are 260,000 users in the room, so he's pulling in 260,000 times 7 payments per month. If they were all pure
Are
freemium
they
users,
paying a penny?
they're paying 700,000. Or so they're paying $700 per
No,
head.
I meant per user. Like, could you buy in for 1 penny a month? Because if he's
No.
got,
No,
what was it, 230,000? Like
no.
230,000, that's a decent amount of pennies.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately you can't buy in for that. Like it's 700 a month. That's the buy-in fee.
Yeah,
That's how you get in the door. So like I said, this is an armada of rich pedophiles. And then, like
lucrative. Oh,
very
lucrative.
lucrative. And that's where, whereas the end, where God is out there saying like, I'm sorry to my victims, fucking I'm sorry. I just really love torturing people. It's my thing. He's out there saying that shit. The doctor's like, well, I did it for the money. Like yeah, that guy's a sicko. I'm doing this because I just needed money. That's his final argument after he gets caught and he's like, they're like, when the fuck would you do this shit, dude?
But I mean, that's the failure of capitalism, isn't it?
It is the failure of capitalism. Well, this story gets worse because like in God's case, he's just like, yeah, whatever. This is who I am. Like I'm a
You're
fucking
always going
monster.
to have the guys that do it for love of the game.
Right.
But the fact that our society creates situations where somebody's like, that's a lot of fucking money. Like, I gotta exploit it if I know how.
Yeah. And like keep in mind the popular theory because of how the doctor like basically like took everything that God did wrong and then escalate it, right? He was like, well, I need to be able to verify these people identity so I can hold it over their heads too, right? So he's like clearly studying on the methodologies to achieve this fucking end goal. Like he's not unfamiliar
He
with the game and all its complexities.
he
So
cranked the game up and made it go brrr.
right. So the thought process is this guy probably was a user of God's rooms and was like, well, now that I know how they function, I can replace the old man. I know what to do, right? Which makes it even more monstrous because this guy's like, I need to innovate and improve in the market. This isn't just a matter of I'm capturing this uncornered market. Now the fucking horror is I need to go ahead and improve where this motherfucker is sloppy. Because right before they started really getting caught, God was like, "Hey man, you need to set your stuff up to do this." And the doctor was like, "The fuck would I listen to you, loser?" And he's like, "Well, you don't have to listen to me for shit, but he's like, this is what we should do in case we're caught." And he goes, "They're not going to catch me. I'm not stupid like you are." He's really like trash talking him during this. He's like, "Okay, yeah, whatever, but you should do it because if they do catch you, then you can victimize all those people again. You can get them again." To which the doctor's like, yeah, fuck off. But in reality, he's like, that son of a bitch is so right. Fuck. I don't want him to be right. But he's like, yeah, all right, so that's how we're going to set this shit up. So the cops now have a deadly dance on their hands where if they don't catch this guy clean, he can just ditch all the evidence, dox all the people, and he gets to do one final, like, big fuck you thrust, right? So now the cops are, like, really, really hurting for how to go about this shit because they have a big ass problem on their hands. Eventually they do catch the guys. They start, like I said, they start with a doctor and they start with money payments because somebody manages to figure out how, where the doctor changes his money from crypto because a lot of these payments are in crypto. This is what I mean when I say these are rich assholes. Like these aren't poor, these aren't down the street diddlers who like work as a janitor all their lives. Like these are rich motherfuckers. The apex of capital. This is the big time shit. Which if it's the big time shit, there's another problem, right? Because it probably means somebody powerful is involved. Somebody powerful is probably a fan too, you know what I mean? Well, while all this shit's going on, right, and they finally catch these two motherfuckers, when they arrest them, God's just like, again, God's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, I really apologize. Sorry to the watchers, no more shit's coming out," which is gross. "Sorry to all the victims." He does like this song and dance, and they jail his ass and set him for court. Whereas the doctor's like, "I'm really sorry to all the watchers. Uh, I'm really sorry about this. This is really inconvenient for you, and I feel really bad for you. I guess there were other victims. I'm told there were." Whereas so like, unlike the two, when you look at the two of them too, like the doctor's like, "No, I'm only in it for the money, but I'm completely unfucking repentant." The God is at least, at the very least is like, "Yeah, I acknowledge that they're victims. I did it." You know what I mean? Like he's like, "Oh yeah, I get it. I victimized the shit out of them. That's exactly what I did. Let's not pretend I did anything different than that." The doctor's like, "I guess there are technically victims. I don't kind of buy it or whatever. Sorry guys, no more content. Haha." Well, then, of course, other people start coming out and talking about this shit because they're like, "Well, how in the fuck has this happened in our society?" And that's when they out themselves because they can't help themselves. They've been operating with such impunity as a group, because of course the internet people on the internet are like, "We need to, we need to capture all the pedos. We just need to purge them all from society because we cannot have this in our society." So then they start like actively defending themselves online. They literally just start coming out and they're just like, "I don't see what the big deal is. It's the women who did the pornography. These guys are just enjoying a little bit of porno. Well, how's that such a crime in this country? Why are you all so sexually backwards?" Right? They start pulling that shit out, which then, of course, people are like, "Why are you defending the pedophiles with the defense that it's not an abnormal thing? Why are you defending them with that defense? Like, why are you so invested in, because there would be people coming out. It's like, we should not shame these guys. We should be rational. We don't live in a country where you just get arrested and go to jail for life for a little bit of pornography, which, like, again, like, they're not
Are you?
watching.
This is the users, not the runners, right?
Right. These are the actual fucking users. They're going out there going like, I don't see what the big deal is about watching a little bit of porno. You know, they're like very actively, that's their defense. They're like, "I don't see why that's such a big moral crime in this country. Why ever would you jeopardize these men's reputation? How could you do this to them?" Which is like, well, that's something a pedophile would say. So people are doxing them, right? They're counter doxing them and just revealing them. And of course, now they're freaking out. And then, like, all the God's fans are like, Jesus Christ, they're coming for us. How could you let this happen? Blah, blah, blah. But of course, he's not even there to answer. They're like, oh shit, they really did get him. Now we're really screwed because what do we do about that information? So these guys are having a mass fucking freak out left and right. Like I said, it ends up with a bunch of Korean dudes killing themselves, and then a bunch of really, really famous Koreans outing themselves. Because there were politicians who were asked for this, and weirdly enough, don't you know, there was pushback. Which, like, you would think, like, shutting down the pedophile ring would be a really easy thing for everybody to wrap around and take credit
Be
for.
on board with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This should be a no friggin' brainer, a soft toss if were there ever one. And weirdly enough, they get an aggressive amount of pushback from some Korean political figures who are like, I don't think we should be ruining these men's lives over watching a little bit of porno. You know?
I think this illustrates it's very unscientific, but like in people who hang out in abuse communities, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
There's this term they call DARVO, which is deny, accuse, reverse victim and offender. And I think this is an excellent representation of that principle.
It does seem like that, right? Because, like, these guys, one of their MO attacks, stop me if you've heard this one before, one of their MO attacks against the journalists and shit was always, oh, this guy's a fucking pedophile. This guy's the fucking pedophile. He's the problem. Which is like, you have aggressive pedophiles.
You're literally committing pedophilia.
My guy, you're in the middle of committing mass pedophilia. What are you talking about that this guy's the problem? Like, oh, you are actually a pedophile. Yeah, they try to drain that word of its power, right? Because they don't want it. Like, of course, they understand intrinsically that label is bad, and they know what they are actively, which is why you said DARVO is the acronym for it. Well, exactly. They engage in this DARVO behavior where they got to like judo flip and know you, and then they're like, ha ta ta tee hee, we've gotten away with it. Don't worry, everyone. We've managed to hide the thing. Which is never true, right? If you're engaging in this shit, like that like the fact that that's your line of attack and that's how you view the stuff. Like, I got bad news, buddy. That's how people know that's what you are. Like, that's exactly how people become cognizant of the fact that that's what you are and what you enjoy and what you do with your life. You know what I mean?
I think that principle is called "He who smelt it dealt it."
Yeah. That I didn't want to go to the Latin legal term, but yeah, sure. That's accurate. But yeah, I mean, but for real though, like that is an accurate portrayal of what they're doing because they are. Again, they are aggressively engaging in this behavior and they're doing it kind of in public. So they're like, well, and even those guys in those forums are like, well, what we got to do is we got to lean in. What we need to do is make sure we're really involved with it in the public debate because then nobody will think we're pedophiles. But the problem is if you enter in the public debate on the side of pedophiles, it actually
It's awfully suspicious.
Through no fault of your own, people might think that you also are a pedophile.
Yeah. It's not like you've done anything to hide it. You haven't really protected yourself very well if you enter. I'm on the like. It's like it's like that joke. Like I'm getting the war against cancer on the side of cancer, kind of thing.
Except they meant it.
I'm gonna enter the war on terror on the side of terror. Like, oh well, that just probably means you're a terrorist. Like.
And also, if you didn't feel the need to announce it, nobody would fucking know.
Yeah, you were more likely to go away blind because there's 260,000 of you. The Korean police cannot physically be everywhere. Like you literally could have got I hate to say it, but like you could have gotten away with it were it not for your own pesky arrogance in trying to defend your rampant pedophilia. Because then of course like the Koreans are like number one, these guys got to get jail for life, if not the death penalty.
Scooby-Doo moment. I'm
Yeah.
just picturing them pulling the mask off, and it's like, yes, it was me, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling self-disclosures that I just threw out there.
Yeah, like, these these meddling admissions of guilt on my behalf. These unforced errors I've been committing. So yeah, like who shot my dick off and you're holding the gun? You know what I mean? Like, who did shoot your
Why?
dick off?
Why would liberals do this?
Yeah, why did the libs do this?
Vito's posting their L's.
Yeah, PETA's posting their L's online. Yeah, these are all horrifyingly accurately true statements about the nature of this situation. They're aggressively announcing what they are. Um, as everything finally kind of unfolds, now it's time for the trial, right? And at the trial, remember, not a year at this point, 2 years prior, they
Dun,
just
dun, dun,
they
dun,
gave a guy
dun.
6 weeks in jail for this, and they were just like, "Fella, we don't want to catch you around these parts again." You know?
We've caught you committing crimes, and by gummit, if you keep doing it, we might have to have some consequences for your actions.
Yeah, you might
Dun, dun.
actually have to deal with the consequences of your actions. You keep this up, fella. So let's not see you around here again. Which is again, a horribly low bar to clear. Horribly low. So now the Korean public panics about what they're going to do with these guys, because of course they want them fucking destroyed. And that is the nice way to put it. The majority of Koreans want these people fucking murked. Like, do not
That's
pass
weird.
go. Yeah, it's weird that the Korean public found out about a ring of 130,000 Korean pedophiles and was like, boy, maybe we ought to just kill these guys. Which, of course, then trots out the routine defenders. And also it trots out another group of people who are like, I can capitalize on the fact these people hate pedophiles by viciously verbally attacking the pedophiles. I can get famous that way, which of course prompts the pedophiles to strike back and be like, how could you say this about your fellow Korean men? How could you ever betray other men like this? Which, again, it's one of those things. It seems reasonable up until you remember that they're not talking about people who wore pink after Labor Day. They're talking about violent rapists. If you're
Can I raise my hand?
Oh yeah, that's how I remember.
Yeah,
Can I raise my hand?
you go
Yeah.
right ahead.
It sounds a little bit like how TERFs do.
A little.
We're so feminist that we can't accept these
Other women.
women that we don't deem women. Like, how dare you be angry at another woman, real woman, for doing something, or the same logic that made I'm with her a thing.
Odd at how you arrived at that. It is similar, isn't it? It is disturbingly similar behaviors. How could you ever not be with? Yeah, isn't that funny that one of the tactics that liberalism uses to defend its shitty political fucking positions is the same aggressive defensive tactics deployed by other hardcore conservatives who just also happen to be pedophiles. It's almost like the tactics of rape are utilized and weaponized throughout society, which is why we can't get over our systemic raping. It's weird. That's an interesting observation you made. It's funny, It's funny that keeps fucking happening in this awful rape fucking world. But I digress yet again. God help me. I just can't keep
I'm just excited because I understood something.
Oh, you did stellar, champ. You did stellar. Yeah, good. I'm so glad that this is something fun and upbeat that we're making these devastatingly accurate connections on, and not rape society. It's not about that.
You
No.
gotta laugh or you will weep.
That's true. That's true. and I want to weep. I have no dick and I must ass. That's where I'm at.
Oof.
I know. It's tough. It's tough. So yeah, and that was it's actually funny because you did touch on one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about this. At the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons I want to talk about this is because this kind of behavior is engendered under unbridled capitalism, which the internet it tries to portend to be. But just like unbridled capitalism, we have the development of brutal monopolies that capitalize on human misery and don't really care about the victims in order to obtain wealth and to trade it through primarily male and unfortunately fairly predominantly white and or Asian males, two of the greatest benefactors of capitalism throughout history. Specifically Koreans or Japanese, right? Um, as we can definitely presume, some of them folks Japanese. Like let's fucking real talk. That's a Japanese move. Big Japanese energy there. Doing that kind of rape shit, that's big Japan energy. Okay.
Senior international porn analyst Dan Cohen is in fact an expert on this. So
On SA, on unfortunately on SA as well. That's I'm slowly becoming that thing. So that's the one thing I didn't think this podcast would give me, and I hate it for it every day of my life.
well, I mean, those materials are relevant to analyzing the porn trends. Unfortunately, at least it's not the level of like being a worker in the Philippines that has to click through things that have been reported as god awful to Facebook and quickly seeing each image and deciding this isn't egregious, this is egregious. Even if you only get one sincerely horrible thing per day,
You're still looking
whatever
at
they
one
pay them,
horrible thing per day.
Yeah.
and even if they didn't have their job because the minimum wage is so low there, or I don't know about the laws in the Philippines. Maybe there is no lowest. Maybe there is no minimum wage.
They have a
Even
legal minimum, but if you were to compare it to America's, you'd be like, we're doing fantastic. Look at this fucking
right,
economy. It's
and
low.
and the point that I'm making is like, no matter what they are paying, you could offer to pay me $1 million a day and tell me that the job was to quickly click through things that have been reported as being horrifying. And I have to do that for like whatever the shift is, but you're going to give me $1 million each time I do that. I couldn't. I don't know what my limit is or would be, but it for sure could not be a long-term gig. And some of these people are doing that every fucking day.
Yeah. Every day of their lives, they're looking at this shit, trying to hunt these people down.
Well, not even hunt them down. Just click. Is this horrifying or not? Because that's what somebody reports you. The software takes over, right?
Yeah.
And they've probably got a little AI looking at the whatever the thing is and being like, okay, maybe.
For the most part, at least in a lot of countries, it's still manual verification.
But what I'm referring to is like the stuff that makes it to the second tier. Like,
Oh.
a bot saw it. Let's make sure. Click all the boxes.
And I do know this.
It's a CAPTCHA. Click all the boxes that contain child sexual abuse materials.
And I do know that in the Korean case, those guys had to look at it by hand every time.
And that
they were because they had to actively
I
stalk
don't
them.
know that that's a job that I couldn't.
How could you? It's gruesome shit, man. But that's, you know, I don't know. Like I said, even I can talk about the Capitol. I can talk about war crimes, and war crimes are always heinous, right? They're always fucking heinous. But I can talk about that shit in relative ease. God knows anything in the race that's suffering. I can. The allies
I
suffering of
mean,
allies is that's something we can discuss freely. Like this is like top tier gruesome shit. Like this is the
I
actual the
we
nitty
were
gritty.
all like laughing recently, but then we got to this part of the conversation and I actually had to like stop and walk away and breathe.
Yeah, because now we're in the stuff
Oh
that's just
shit, we're being sincere. We gotta cut this shit out.
nah. We'll keep it after post. We'll let this one go through, I suppose. I'm getting weak in my old age, but like I said, the big reason I bring this stuff up is because this is like the not only is this the world we live in, but those aggressive abuses of capital are going on like right under our nose. And this is what when you see people who are like, yeah, crypto will liberate us. No, this is not. Crypto was never for that. Like that.
Crypto is to be used for that. That's the whole point of crypto. It is
Yeah,
fucking criminal enterprise.
it was to liberate criminals from their responsibilities and allow them to engender artificial victimhood against their victims. Because that became the rousing defense. Like we were victimized. That was one of their big choruses. Like, he victimized us too because he took our personal info and subjected us to this stuff, you know, and involved us, right? Oh, woe is me, the aggressive sexual predator. I'm the real victim here. Those women in
I
this
knew it.
doctor character were pulling me in unfairly into this world of sexual violence and arousing my deepest, dirtiest passions or whatever. Like this weird song and dance that is amount to like, yeah, I'm an active pedophile. Like I'm just an aggressive, active pedophile. That's all. That's all I am. You know. But that is what Again, I cannot stress it enough. That is what capitalism is for. Right? Capitalism is for people with way too much money to indulge their sickest pleasures. That is the liberation therefrom. Second off, when they cook up some harebrained scheme or something that we write off as silly most of the time for its investment return, we're not actually talking about the item for what it's actually for. And what it's usually actively for is a human rights abuse. A very, very violent and aggressive human rights abuse against people who just can't defend themselves in the same way uh, that even you or I could, because of course we have the luxury of, just being a United States citizen and a luxury of being physically removed from those aggressive and violent situations on a day-to-day basis. And not all Americans enjoy that. Let's be dark and real about that too. Not all Americans
Right.
enjoy that
But
protection.
us that are here right now,
Yeah, so far doing good.
so so far we're not imprisoned.
Nope. We're not
I don't
uh, we're
think.
not we're not being texted, in the middle of our middle school class and told to go lick the men's room. That's not happening to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that truly terrible shit hasn't happened to us yet.
hasn't happened to us yet. But that is also like the
So
concern.
far.
The other thing is like when people talk about the global conservative movement, they're like they want to seize all this political power. What they want to do deep down is they just want to generate a new avenue to rape people. That's it. That's all conservatives exist to do. Conservatives exist to commit felony rape. Like they always have. Nothing has changed about that. There's nothing fundamentally different about the conservatives from 1890 and now. And it's just a way to exploit sexual violence and transfer sexual violence into ill-gotten gains against the local population. None of that has changed at all. It's the exact same shit they've always been doing. It's the exact same shit they'll continue to do until we actually do something about the conservative movement writ large. And this is again like, could I say that Matt Walsh, for example, was definitely a watcher in the rooms? No, I couldn't make that claim, and by rights I would be legally problematic. Could I envision Matt Walsh being a participant in the rooms? Yeah, it's exactly the kind of values that he purports to have: sexual sadism, sexual violence against women, sexual violence against children, sexual violence in order to discipline and subordinate women and children. Um, there's nothing out of line with it, which is why you find in right political spaces their motto for pedophiles is that we'll deal with them later. It's not that they don't think it's wrong. It's just when they look at when they look at the problem of liberalism and communism, and they look at the problem of pedophiles, they see pedophilia as a second order problem. And it's not surprising then that a lot of their membership and a lot of their leadership become readily accused of pedophilia. These are your Denny Hastards and your Matt Gaetz is certainly credibly accused. That accusation is credible from a credible source, and it's not being investigated, which is odd. But if we remember what the congressman in Korea said, I don't see what the problem is with the guy watching a little bit of porno. I don't see the big deal is we should really take those laws off the books overall. We should permit them to engage in this with legal sanction. We shouldn't even have laws to make a nod and gesture at the fact that this may be wrong in some fashion.
Even undesirable for society.
Even undesirable for society. We shouldn't even be making overtures to that. We should be saying that this is the standard that people should come to expect from our nation state. And, to the Korean netizens, the ones who were decent people, their solution to the problem is like a little different.
But wait, but hold on. Like, I mean, if we're entertainment consumers and we're consuming entertainment, and we should have like the reasonable belief that that this stuff that we're watching, it's not real, it's scripted, there's special effects. Do you expect me to do like research into, I don't know, Jurassic Park to see what was CGI, what was practical effects, like what was achieved by sleight of hand through cinematography? Like I can't do that every time I want to watch a like a short little video. That's
Your defense is actually better than the defenses they proposed. Your defense would be, I thought this was simulated material functionally. How was I to
and
know it
you
wasn't
can't
simulated?
prove I didn't. If I
Notably,
want to
the
if I
perps.
want to watch a super realistic snuff film, that doesn't make me a fucking criminal. And you're fucked up. You're fucked up for insinuating that I'm fucked up for wanting to see it.
Again, though, that wasn't their defense.
In fact, that is by definition a better defense than what they offered.
What they proposed is they shouldn't be punished for doing what they did just because they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be punished for watching this because they weren't producing it. They shouldn't be punished for watching it because it's clearly the woman's fault that they even got involved with this guy to begin with. They shouldn't be punished.
Oh goddamn! They used the "what was she wearing" defense.
They used the "what was she wearing" defense for all of it.
Ah.
Yeah, their defense was that she made the content. I don't see why I'm at fault here.
That guy was out there being brown. I mean, he just should have expected to get shot.
Yeah, that was their active defense. That's why I said when you go, how am I supposed to know it's not fake? It's bad if you were trying to find fake versions of it. I will actively grant you that it is less bad than trying to find the real thing, sure, but not by much. But the counterpoint is that wasn't their defense. Their defense was, it's the woman's fault. It's the doctor's fault. It's not my fault that I wanted to watch it. Tantalizing me with it. How dare you tantalize me with this content and then be mad at me for picking it up?
You put a dollar bill on the street and then you pushed a button that reeled it back towards you.
Yeah.
J'accuse.
J'accuse. Yes. Yeah. That was the logic of these men. They're how can they ever be at fault for enjoying what was put before them to enjoy? How's that even remotely begin to be any semblance of the word fair? And again, like, there's an irony to that. Of course, there's a deep and vicious irony to that because these men are going out of their way to seek the content and add to the content so that they can enjoy the content. They're going out of their way to do it, but these men find that like that's not a legitimate problem that you could even begin to address because of course I would want to do this. Why would it be weird that I wanted to? Why are you judging my lifestyle? They tried lifestyle defenses, they tried moral defenses. Aren't you all just having a sexual moral panic that's kind of undue? Like it's unbecoming in a modern society? Like, they tried the old, well, the LGBT people are pedophiles. Why can't I be? Why is it suddenly wrong for a straight man, a straight rich man to be a pedophile? They tried shit like that. They tried all sorts of things that were never, you know, a few of them tried no, it wasn't me, man. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. That's fucked up. A few of them tried that, sure. There were a few of them who were always cowards and do it, but there were so many brazen ones, and that's what was upsetting people. They were just cavalier about the fact that they were engaged in this behavior, but by their metric, like, why wouldn't they be cavalier about it? They had been getting away with it for 2 years. They were able to taunt the cops. They were able to taunt the cops pretty fucking freely about the fact that they were doing this stuff. Why wouldn't they be cavalier? Why wouldn't they just be monstrous? How could anybody have the brazen attitude that they should be interfering in these men's artistic passions, In fact, there was one congressman who notably said over there who was like, I feel like these women are artists and just expressing their art. I don't see why we're getting in the way of their art. How dare you step on the free speech of the artist? Well, keep in mind that particular art was having a man carve, you being required to carve a man's name into your arm and declare yourself their property, and then be threatened with harassment and rape if you were not completely complicit and obedient with these acts of sexual degradation and humiliation. They were called
Oh,
slaves.
so they were doing Nexium style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. The women who were victimized, the women and children who were victimized, because it was primarily, like, let's face it, these were primarily children, right? However, there were a subset of women they also managed to rope in and victimize in this way. And they were even trying to threaten celebrities and prove that they had all these power over these rich and powerful women, that they could do it to them too. Because again, these aren't the richest men in the world necessarily, but they are rich enough, right? They're rich enough to be able to afford the content while still having overwhelming complexes about inferiority. So they were even trying to attack celebrities and shit, aren't targeting what they call gal groups or whatever, and shit like that. Like they were going all over it. These guys were going all fucking out all of the fucking time. Anywhere they could be wiling out, they were wiling out. No fear about their behavior at all.
Well, I've never met a consequence before, Bob. Why would I start now?
Yeah. But just the unmitigated excesses of having this power over a vulnerable population, and what they did with it, of course, was rape. And this is the story of capitalism when you really boil it down. That's the thing that people don't want to acknowledge. Not many Koreans want to acknowledge it either. The basis of their society is ultimately the basis of a capitalist society. And that capitalist society is a rape society. It is one that encourages you to engage in the rape and torture of people who are weaker than you, the weakest members of your own population, let alone, what they would have done if they got a hold of a foreign girl, because this is their own, right? These are racists and bigots and supremacists who are looking at their own population, their own women, the thing they're always trotting on about, how they need to have ideal women and how they have to be this and that, right? Well, these are your
Quick,
women, and this is what you think of them, this is what you do with them. What are you going to do to foreign women, huh? What are you going to do with them? Ain't going to be better.
can I raise my hand again?
Oh, don't just jump on in.
Okay. One of the things, listening to the last part, like kind of a callback to when I was saying, like, oh, piracy, like you had to submit a thing to get entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the way that these guys did it. But this is it's another illustration of why capitalism ruins everything, because back, like I said, back in the original days, it was like, you give a thing, what is that thing worth and who does it hurt?
Yeah.
And somebody somewhere changed some zeros and ones. Like, that's what it took. And who is it hurting? Generally, it's hurting the return to a large corporation. If it's a small independent artist, like that relative hurt is worse, right?
Yeah.
But if it's Microsoft or Adobe or Bethesda or whatever, they're not going to feel the hurt so much.
No.
So that's the victor who loses.
Right.
And what you have to do to get it. Like I said, like, programmer might have spent a lot of time building a crack, but here's the thing: they put it out there. It wasn't like it was stolen from them. They put it out there. So those are the facts. Is it a crime? You are sharing electronic information that somebody made, and there's infinite copies. Like, you just grabbed one and used it.
Yeah.
In this case, who is harmed? The people in the fucking videos.
Right. That's
who
where. Yeah.
And what did you have to do to get it? What did you have to do? Like, what was it worth to you? And the fact that there are people who, if you get $1,500 a month in interest on some account that somebody set up for you somewhere, I mean, you're getting more than that. But, like, that payment comes out of stuff that you didn't have to do anything to do. It doesn't mean anything to you.
No.
And like I'm saying, like, I think that's another illustration of a failure of capitalism. Like, people that have so much of the magic breadcrumbs that just, like, keep reproducing, they don't even know.
Right. They never have to know.
Right. It's a banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
Yeah. None of these things are real to me anyway. What does it fucking matter if I get it right?
Right. And as disturbingly high as the pedo rates apparently are, without capital, I don't think this situation could have existed.
No. Well, think about it. Like, what is it premised on? It's premised on capitalism's unrelenting need for real estate. It's premised on pedophilia's need for secrecy. And it is premised on people's urge to acquire profit in a market that is unforged, that under a system, under feudalism, that market doesn't need to exist. And it certainly is not that pedophilia didn't
And
exist under feudalism. It was the marriage rights.
but even in this electronic age, like, if it was a straight, like, pedo for pedo chat, it would have been horrible. It would have been awful. Like, that's not something that I would want to exist. However, it would at least only consist of the people that are hardcore enough to not just throw breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Because, like we talked about, like, there's some people who are just like, fuck yeah, like, this is my thing. But there's other people who are like, they understand the game. They understand they don't want to advertise. They're certainly not going to lift their asses to do anything about it. But just throw breadcrumbs at it. That'll fix it. And I can do whatever the fuck I want.
I have unmitigated power with none of the responsibility.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a pretty ideal setup if you're on that side of the equation.
that's true. If you're a
I
fucking
would
monarch,
like to think that I would feel shitty about it, though, at the very least.
I'm sure some of them do. Humans are complex. Not all of them are gonna be
Total
overjoyed with them.
monsters.
Well, they are total monsters regardless, but like they're not all gonna be like aggressive about it, right? Some of them are gonna feel guilty and they're just gonna be like, well, I just watch, so like I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't say
Well,
anything
I
in the
don't even
chat.
watch. I put my hands over my eyes and ears. I grew extra. I went to Turkey to get an extra arm
Grafted on.
put in. Yeah. And, it only cost 150 grand. Like, you know, pocket change.
And I'm not even worried about how I get it back.
Right. No, literally, it's the stuff that you find in your couch. But yeah, like, as long as I don't pay attention, I don't see it, I don't hear it. Like, I know it exists in the abstract. Like, I can't do anything about it. So why is it even worth being upset about?
Yeah, aren't we just freaking out over nothing right now? Aren't we all just having it's not like but
Well, it
yeah,
is what it is.
it is what it is. So why are we all getting so fucking mad about it? We all gotta chill the fuck out and just, enjoy the view. Ugh. Ugh. But yeah, I mean, that's really like that's what's on the line. We have a moral society, and again, I'm not naive enough to believe that those things didn't exist in a society where the marriage rights involved it, right? I'm not I'm not naive enough or stupid enough to actually try to make that a credible claim. Like feudalism never had this problem, which you will find in some strains of right wingers who still are offended by pedophilia, allegedly, but really upon further interrogation of their beliefs, don't really seem to be. They want it institutionalized another direction. These are your Catholic fundamentalists who want to go back to marrying off a girl at age 12 and calling her a woman.
You might still be sex criming, but at least you knew the little girl's name.
Yeah, at least you gotta take ownership of your sex crime there, which is like, oh wow, like, whew, whew, that was the thing I was worried about, not putting your name on it. Not feeling confident enough to put a ring on it was the thing I was worried about. So yeah, good. We're getting back to good moral Christian society there. So yeah, I don't know. Like you said, the big reason it
Dan,
brings,
there's some girls that ain't made for marrying.
and some girls are made to be forced to marry.
And there's some girls that, like, just ain't worth it. And you can do what you want.
Yeah, but that's the biggest thing. When you conceive of our right wingers here, they are taking their cues. They are exchanging cues internationally. They are looking for what works elsewhere and what doesn't work, and modifying and adapting and overcoming. In this mode of terror and horror, they are the most progressive group you will find, unfortunately. Because when it comes to race relations, these are people who fight over which race you get to blame in a genocide, not the fact that people are dying. They get to go, I get to hate I get to pick who I hate the most, and I get to keep levying hateful criticisms against them. These are people who don't see victims but for when they are inconvenienced. That's when victimhood arises out of their inconvenience only. But when it comes to navigating new ways to terrorize our most vulnerable populations, these are people who are the most progressive motherfuckers on the planet in that regard. They are constantly trying to push that envelope and find new ways of terror. And terrorizing is a way to build their power artificially. And we should be very cognizant and take very serious that fact. So, when we're doing our do we vote for Biden because he's genocidal? Do we vote for Trump because he's genocidal? Do we not vote at all, which will de facto permit a genocide, but I can make the credible claim I didn't aid and abet either of them because I didn't push for either of them. You know, when we're doing these little logic games or something like that, somewhere out there a right winger is violently committing a rape. And they are committing a murder. And while we're fucking around and not even trying to fire off a bake sale to fire off socialism so we can start presenting a new social order where that can actually be punishable, we're arguing about whether or not these people get the death penalty. We're arguing about whether or not these people deserve mercy or they need mental health help. And meanwhile, they're thinking about new ways to assault you and film it for the internet to show other people what they did to you. So your disorganization is actually actively costing someone the salvation they need. You are not the perpetrator in any of these crimes, but all of us collectively, when we can't even fire off a fucking bake sale for socialism, we are
Every
actively enabling. That's kind of a
so
hard pill to
basically,
swallow.
it sounds like what you're saying is that while most people are still arguing about like the uh it's a little like the underwear news. Step 1, what happened? This was the problem. Step 2, let's skip over that. Step 3, well, let's all argue about like what the root causes really are and what the penalties should be and blah 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 blah. But everybody has skipped over step 2, which is like, what do we fucking do about it right now?
Yeah.
We can argue about why the building caught on fire. But meanwhile, that shit's burning. And it's kind of, I think it's kind of important to think about, like, what do I do right now?
Yeah. It it's pretty gruesome and unfortunate. And I'm sorry, for those of you who bother to listen to this and get to this point where we start reflecting on the cruelties that are involved in this, right? I'm very sorry that you made it this far. God knows I made it this far, and I'm sorry to me. I owe myself a treat, right? I owed me some downtime treats. But I don't know what those will be, but nothing is going to rip away at the fact that while we're worried about whether or not the right wingers have their precious free speech under socialism, they're using that free speech to plot your murder and rape. That's what they do. They're the kind of violent sexual psychopaths who do that. And while you're arguing over this shit about how you handle them and how you play kid gloves with them, or do you play kid gloves with them or anything, that's what they're doing because they're organized and have power. And instead of reacting to that in a way that would help dislodge that power, again, you're worried about dumb shit. Like I said, every time this is one of those things that really fucks me off when they worry about like right wingers free speech. Yeah, you know what he's doing with that? He's trying to pay for sex to an underage woman. That's what he's doing with that free speech. You're worried about his free speech, and he's a violent pedophile. I don't care about his free speech. That's not a real problem. Frankly, the fact that he has any free speech in our society is problematic. The fact that he has freedom of movement, the fact that he has the freedom to earn an unfixed income that will allow him to live the lifestyle to which he has become accustomed. All of that is a horrific problem, and those rights have to be revoked. His rights, his very right to his quote unquote humanity, and the way he's engendering his humanity and engaging with it, is the exact fucking problem that needs to be solved. And that sounds really cold, but it's true. That is the problem you have. The humanity that person is expressing is a humanity where he's trying to physically attack women and engender power over them and then exert that power through sexual violence, up to and including rape and murder. He's trying to do that on a society-wide scale, such that any female participant in the society, this is the lifestyle they ought to become accustomed to. Because he's not trying to change his life, he's trying to change the lives of everybody around him. He's trying to shape society in a way that he desires society to be. And when we get into these petty pissing matches about whether or not Matt Taibbi can say what he said in a free, safe zone, just understand that somebody in Matt Taibbi's immediate circle that Matt Taibbi may or may not be aware of, somebody in his immediate circle is using that same free speech argument to justify the rape and brutality of most likely a middle school girl or a child.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably Matt Taibbi making that
It could
claim.
be. I'm not making that normative claim for legal reasons, but it could be. God knows that Elon
Definitely
Musk looks like he's on that list.
not him.
You know. Uh, when you look at somebody like Matt Taibbi who's hanging out with Elon Musk, I can tell you in that group chat somebody was. I can't tell you who,
Yeah,
but I know in that
it
group
was
of
one of
few,
them.
I know it was one of them. It's hard not to figure out it was one of them, you know. And
Right.
again, which one of those two do you think has the kind of money to drop on that kind of content? And which one of them would have known that and said, well, gee, I could get in a lot of trouble for hanging out with this guy? Never once thinking, that if I expose this guy, I'm going to be a hero to a lot of people and I'm going to get my left bona fides back, which would it just be
Wait,
as
wait, wait.
self-serving.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Was I lost attention for a moment. Are you saying that Matt Taibbi is a pedophile?
I'm saying that in the group chat between him and Elon Musk, one of them had the money and resources to engage as being a watcher in these rooms and would have the right connections to do so, and the other one was Matt Taibbi. That's the claim I'm making.
Okay. So what I'm going to say out loud and for the recording is that I just kind of really enjoy the sentence Matt Taibbi is a pedophile.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you want to think that I said that, that's fine.
No.
I'm not going
I'm
to
not
correct
saying
you.
right. No, and I'm not even owning that thought. To be clear, for
Right.
the record, I'm I am making no claims about Mr. Taibbi. I just really I
Would like.
really like saying the sentence Matt Taibbi is a pedophile, and how dare you shame me
I'm
for
not
getting
shaming.
off on that.
I didn't shame you on it. I did. I did. I said
Oh
if
no,
that.
I'm talking about anybody that comes at me later.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I didn't. What I said, just to be clear, was in your defense, was that I didn't say it. But if you think I said it and that makes you happier, then there's no reason for me to correct you on your thinking.
If we would like to believe that Daniel said Matt Taibbi is a pedophile, if that gives us a little tingle in our heart or our nether regions, like, we should feel free to believe that, even though it's not a thing. Who is it hurting? Who is
Yeah.
it hurting?
Who is it
I
hurting?
mean, I can't think of anyone worth addressing.
What human being got hurt is the real question.
Right.
Because I think you'll find there's no answer to that comes out with a human being got hurt. But I also have to let you know that I think conservatives aren't humans. I have to reiterate my bias. I don't conceive of Trump as having humanity. I don't conceive of them having humanity. I think they give it up to
Well,
become
I would
conservative.
quibble over calling him a conservative.
Who, Trump?
Yes.
No, he's a hard conservative.
That presupposes the belief that he has any beliefs at all.
Well, he's a capitalist. He has capitalist beliefs. He has base capitalist beliefs. So by de facto, he is just a conservative.
Oh, but yeah, by default, I don't know.
And
I got the vibe you were imputing like motives.
yeah,
And
profit acquisition, which he's demonstrated is his motive. Yeah, I am.
but can you call them motives if they're not conscious?
Yeah, there's still motives.
Is reptile brain stuff motive? Like,
Yeah,
I have a motive to pee occasionally, so my
right.
couch isn't soaked.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then he does have motives, but I don't know that they're truly conscious.
Next week on Sons of Trier, ideology is computer programming. You heard it here. We're doing another redux. All right, but it is now time.
It is the time.
It is the time. Y'all have a great evening. Don't die, America. We love you. Excellent work,
We
everybody.
love you.
Bringing it
Don't
home.
die.
Bringing it home. Election level
I
quality.